Alright guys, I'm the NFL Addict, and today I will be making my record predictions for the 2021 Carolina Panthers. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe. If you like NFL videos, I do these all year round during the season, during the postseason, and during preseason. So let's go ahead and get started talking about the Panthers. The Panthers are a kind of strange team because I feel like they could, if Sam Darnold leaves the Jets and starts playing really well like a lot of other players have, then we could see the Panthers possibly make the playoffs. I definitely think that Sam Darnold is probably an upgrade overall to Teddy Bridgewater. Other than there was a 3-game stretch where Teddy Bridgewater looked really good. I think he had like the best completion percentage at one point. I don't think Sam Darnold could live up to that, but the other 13 games, I definitely think that Sam Darnold will be better than that. Because he was okay on the Jets, and now he's coming over to the Panthers, where now he has Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore as his options at wide receiver. His main options, obviously they have other ones, and he can also just hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey, who is probably the second best running back in the league, second to Derrick Henry. So yeah, their offense is, I think it's going to be pretty good. They have a pretty young defense. They have a lot of guys they drafted last year and this year that if they can take that second year, or if they can just come to the league and play pretty well, this defense could be a lot better than maybe it is predicted to be. See, I thought the Panthers, I definitely think their defense has a lot of flaws, but that secondary with Jeremy Chin and J.C. Horn is going to be pretty good, I feel, and when AJ Boye gets back from his suspension, he'll also be a big help there. So I feel like the secondary is pretty good. They have a solid offense, a very good running game with Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, it's kind of off and on, a rough front seven. They're going to have an okay passing game. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to be great. And, that running game is where that is great. Their offensive line, I guess you could use, maybe a couple other pieces, but really it's pretty good as it is. All right, but in week 1, they have a revenge game from Sam Darnold. They start off with a home game against the New York Jets, and the Jets are really they didn't really do all that much. They got Zach Wilson, obviously, but other than that, they kind of just coasted and waited until they could get Zach Wilson. And, they were bad last year. I don't think, getting another quarterback who I definitely think will be pretty good. I don't think that's going to get them good enough to beat Carolina. So Carolina is going to start off their season at 1-0, and then they have their first divisional game. It's their second straight home game to start off the season. It's another Sunday game against the New Orleans Saints, who a lot of people are thinking that they're gonna, have a horrible season and they're gonna, get 6 wins, all because they had to cut a lot of people due to their horrible cap situation. But they did manage to keep Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Malcolm Jenkins. They really only lost Janoris Jenkins, or not Malcolm Jenkins, whatever the heck that guy's name is. They did lose Janoris Jenkins, though, which is pretty rough, and a couple other minor pieces. Their starting tight end he was booted over to the Chargers. So, yeah, they did lose a lot of pieces, but they kept a lot of good ones, and I feel like Jameis Winston will play better now that he's had a year to sit behind Drew Brees and maybe get his decision-making, which was his biggest flaw, was he made terrible decisions. If he could be taught out of that, I think he can. I think he might have been. We don't know, obviously. His only pass last year was like a 50-yard touchdown, but that doesn't mean anything. So I feel like, these teams are close enough, so I'm probably going to have them split. So I'll have Carolina win in week 2, and when I get there, I'll have New Orleans win in week 17. So they start off their season at 2-0, which is actually a surprise because I don't think that they're going to be that great. But who knows? Looking at this schedule, they could do some great things. But in week 3, they have an away game against the Houston Texans, who basically got rid of absolutely everybody. Really, they don't really have anybody except for Deshaun Watson, and I don't think he's going to get suspended or arrested or any of that. They're going to do what every single other rich person does and just, sell it outside of court, which, for all we know, it's all a bunch of BS and they wanted attention, but whichever. We can hope that they just wanted attention, that, he didn't actually do all those things. But either way, their defense isn't great, especially with losing J.J. Watt, and their offense without Will Fuller, relying on Brandon Cooks. They do have a solid running game with Philip Lindsay and Mark Ingram now, which is going to be pretty tough for that weak defensive line in Carolina to contend with. I guess, that could lead to Houston maybe winning this game if they are turned into a run-heavy running machine, basically. But I think Carolina's going to get this win here and jump up to 3-0. Holy crap. So the Panthers are actually going to start off the season pretty well at 3-0. Then in week 4, they have another away game against the Dallas Cowboys, who re-signed Dak, added some pieces to the secondary and to that defense as a whole, but they did not solve their biggest issue, which is a terrible offensive line. They don't have an offensive line, and they don't have offensive line depth at all. What you saw Zeke, he completely flatlined last year, and that had a lot to do with him. He didn't have a good passing game to kind of fall back on, but also he didn't have a offensive line. So it was really relying on him with no offensive line and with not that much talent to go out there and produce, and he didn't do it because they don't have that much of an offensive line. However, Carolina doesn't really have all that much of a defensive line outside of maybe Brian Burns, who had a couple of good games last year, but definitely should not have been in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. I'm sorry, he had one amazing game, astounding game against the Vikings, where he got 2 touchdowns in 2 consecutive plays on defense, which is pretty great. Other than that, though, he hasn't been great, so I definitely think this will be a close one. Dallas is pretty good passing game. I don't think Dak Prescott is as good as he's hyped up to be against Carolina's pretty good secondary. And I think it's all going to come down to that Carolina. And also, Carolina has such a good running game, and Dallas, that defensive line is pretty good. It's pretty rough, but I think Christian McCaffrey and that okay passing and that okay offensive line are actually going to give Carolina. They're going to start off 4-0. I don't like pre-do these. I just open this up, I clear out all the predictions that I already did, and I remember what they were. So I did not realize that they were going to be starting 4-0. Holy crap! I'm looking. They got handed a lot of gifts with this early season schedule. It gets a lot rough in the last little stretch here, but like I said, it's playoffs, so it doesn't really matter. But holy crap! And then in week 5, they have a home game against the Philadelphia Eagles, who literally, kind of like the Texans, got rid of absolutely everybody except for Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. They do have a pretty solid tight end duo. That's really the only thing they have for their mediocre rookie quarterback. And I think Carolina is going to start off 5-0. I am astounded. I honestly think it might collapse. I don't think that they'll, keep on being undefeated, but it's whatever. In week 6, they have a home game. It's a rematch against the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota people got mad at me for saying this in the Minnesota Vikings video, but they didn't add that much to their team other than some pretty good pieces to that secondary. So I think the Minnesota can shut down this Carolina passing game. I don't know if Carolina's team, I don't know if they're good enough to keep up with that great running back that Minnesota has. And so I'm going to give Minnesota the win here. And Carolina gets their first loss in week 6. Wow, holy crap. Starting off 5-1. But I don't know how long that's going to last again. So in week 7, an away game against the New York Giants, they have a pretty solid defense. They started showing up a lot late in the season, not like crazy late, but towards the second half of the season, their defense started showing up and looking pretty good. Then they went out this offseason, they added Kenny Galladay, they added Kyle Rudolph, and if Daniel Jones can start, performing, then this Giants team definitely has a really good shot at the NFC East. However, with the good secondary that Carolina has, I think it'll be hard for Daniel Jones to get anything done against it. And also, the thing going against Carolina is freaking, I can't think of his name right now, but the Giants have one of the best running backs in the league sitting back there. Not a great offensive line, but a pretty freaking good running back. It doesn't matter then. So yeah, Giants have a great running game, and Carolina doesn't have the best defensive line. So I think it's going to be a close one. But for those reasons, I'm giving the Giants the win, and I'm giving Carolina their second straight loss. And I'm looking at this, and I don't think it's going to be a great last 12 games for the Carolina Panthers here. And then in week 8, they have an away game against the Atlanta Falcons, another kind of break from the really tough games as we go into Arizona, who got Kyle Pitts when they should have drafted Justin Fields. I'm sorry, but that was Matt Ryan, he hasn't been performing great the last couple of years, and he's entering the later years of his career. So I feel like getting Justin Fields to go back there would be great. Also, losing Julio Jones is kind of like the nail in the coffin here. I'm probably going to have Carolina sweep them just because of how bad that. I mean, really, they don't have that much of a running game. Todd Gurley had a not good year last year. Let's just say it. He had 2 or 3 games where he looked spot on, especially against Carolina. That was one. That's mainly because Carolina doesn't have a defensive line, so I guess they could take advantage of that. But with no Julio Jones, I mean, this passing game is going to be weakened, and going up against a really tough Carolina secondary, I'm sorry, but I think Carolina can get the sweep here, and I'm going to have them win in Week 14 too when they come off of the bye week. So now they're back into the winning category. They're 6-2, which is pretty freaking good. But I'm just going to warn you, Carolina fans, the second half of the season is. I wouldn't be surprised if you only won like 2 or 3 games, but hey, I still have to go through it. Okay. In Week 9, they have to go up against the New England Patriots, who went out and completely revamped this offense. They went out, they got Nelson Aguilar. They went out, they got probably the best. I've been saying one of the best in all my prior videos, but this probably is the best tight end duo in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I mean, those two are just very, very talented tight ends, and the fact that they have both of them in there, and a tight end duo is pretty important to have. When you have 2 very good tight ends going out there, it's going to be pretty good for you. They also drafted a couple pieces for that offense, and that defense has been solid for a while. So I honestly think that New England can kind of have a revitalized season here, and I'm going to give New England the win against Carolina. Then they have an away game against Arizona, and Arizona, I mean, they played pretty well last year. I definitely think they were better than their 8-8 record. They didn't show it in some games, but they were definitely pretty good, and I'm going to give them the win against Carolina. All right, now they've kind of fallen down. They're getting way, way too close to falling back into .500. They started off 5-0, and they've gone 1-4 in their last 5 games. They've got to start, ramping things up before their second half of the season, where I'm pretty sure, it's going to be rough for them to do anything. And then in Week 11, they have a home game against Washington, who has one of the best defenses in the league. I don't think it's the best. There's a couple other defenses that I think are up there. They definitely got a lot better at the wide receiver position when they added Curtis Samuel and Adam Humphries from the Panthers. So Adam Humphries isn't from the Panthers, but adding Curtis Samuel from the Panthers that's gonna help out Washington a lot to have a good wide receiver 2 and a pretty solid wide receiver 3. Completely revamped their whole offense. I like what Washington is doing. Washington's gonna get the win here. And then in Week 12, they have an away game against Miami. And Miami. They show that they trust in Tua Tagovailoa, but I don't know if he takes that second-year leap, then Miami 100% makes the playoffs and 100% wins this game. Even if he stays the way he is last year, they're probably going to win this one. The loss of Kyle Van Noy, though, which was a big surprise when they got rid of him, but still they did lose him. That is going to help. That is going to hurt a bit, but I think they will still get the win here against Carolina. So start off 5-0. You've gone 1-6 in your last 7. You enter your bye week. You've got another home divisional game coming off of a bye. I don't think Atlanta will be where the Panthers are right now. And like I already said, I'm going to give them the sweep. So Carolina goes on a 4-game losing streak, but they get another win against Atlanta. So now they're 7-6. They've got a winning record again. They've got a really tough end of the season. But if they can go in here and they can maybe go 2-2, go 9-8, maybe sneak in a really tough NFC West, though, and a really tough. Really, the NFC has a lot of contenders this year. The AFC, you've got a lot of teams that are are going to make the playoffs, and the rest you just know aren't. And with the NFC, you've got a lot of different teams that are kind of contending. It's kind of flip-flop from last year. But in Week 15, going up against one of the best teams in the league, I'm sorry, but the Panthers aren't going to get the win here. They fall back to .500. But I did not think that the Panthers, if you had asked me before I made this, will the Panthers in Week 16 will they be .500? Will they have a tied record? Will they not have a losing record? I probably would say no. But looky here. They've gone 7-7. They're still in there. I don't care how tough that this is. If they can find a way to maybe sweep New Orleans and maybe they can get a win against Tampa Bay or something, that's 9-8. That's in there. Maybe not in the playoffs, but that's in the conversation. However, going up against probably one of the best teams in the league again, I'm going to give Tampa Bay the win here. I already said I'm going to give them the split, and I'm going to have Tampa Bay sweep. So yeah, not a great end of the year. Started off 5-0, ended off 2-10. I told you. I honestly, I live in North Carolina, so I feel kind of bad about this. I am kind of a Panthers fan. I'm not like a huge Panthers fan. I have another team that I'm a bigger fan of, and I have shirts up and all that crap. But it does hurt seeing the Panthers start off 5-0, probably one of the best teams in the league, probably being called one of the most surprising teams in the league, to fall down to 2-10 with their only 2 wins being sweeping the Falcons. So not great to see. And hopefully you don't hate me. But let's go ahead and do worst case scenario so you can see what could have happened. You guys could definitely have gotten swept by New Orleans. I'm going to give you that loss there. I definitely can see Dallas winning this one, and you guys could split with Atlanta. So absolute worst case scenario. Keep in mind this isn't like likely at all. This is absolute worst case scenario. This is everything goes wrong. You guys start off instead of 5-0, 3-2, and you end off instead of 2-10, 1-11. Holy crap. Well, let's move it back to what I think will happen. Again, this is absolute worst case scenario. This isn't very likely at all. I think the most likely scenario is 7-10. Nope, wrong game. Where was it? I had one more win. Oh, it was against Atlanta. All right. Now, let's do best case scenario. This is everything goes great. All right, so best case scenario, they beat Minnesota. They kind of get revenge for last year. Then I could see them beating the Giants maybe if Brian Burns and a lot of these young guys on the defensive line can't step it up, then they can start off the season 8-0. How do you like that? And then one against Washington isn't too crazy. And maybe one more. You know what? Absolute best case scenario, the best the Panthers can play. They get the sweep, not the sweep, but they split with Tampa Bay and they sweep New Orleans. There we go. Absolute best case scenario is 12-5. The Panthers are a team that has a 8-game range. That's because there's a lot of things that could go right, a lot of things that could go wrong. I think it's kind of down the middle, obviously. I think that probably worst case scenario is more likely than best case scenario, but that's not by much. Don't hate me for saying that. Let me switch it back, sadly, because I do live in North Carolina and blah, blah, blah. And there we go. 7-10, not the worst. They're definitely going to be better than Atlanta. So there's a lot of teams that they're going to be better than. But thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next one where I will be making my predictions for the Atlanta Falcons. So if you don't like me for making these predictions, maybe you'll like me better when you see how badly I had the Falcons doing. Because, as someone who's kind of a Panthers fan, I know that we do not like the Falcons. Mainly the Saints and kind of the Buccaneers, but we also don't like the Falcons. So, again, like and subscribe, do all that, and I hope to see you.